Hi, welcome to another episode of Better Health Through Live Food. Now, just a recap of what live food is. Live food is basically living plant food. And we mentioned previously about sprouted almond and also sprouted rice. What we tend to do is with our rice, we soak it overnight. And what that does, it starts to germinate. Now, as you know, seeds often have a substance that prevents it from being eaten. And that's the whole point of seeds, isn't it? It wants to germinate and carry on the species. So it produces a substance that prevents digestion of the seed. But by soaking it, when it's starting to germinate, it loses that inhibition, that substance. So it's a lot easier for you to digest. So when you soak it, it increases the nutrient level. So this is how we can make things like protein powder. If you look at this one here, for example, this easy protein powder is actually made from sprouted brown rice. So it is 80% protein, but the fact that they are sprouted increase the nutrient level. And there's something else it does too. They're fermented, and the fermentation process makes it a lot easier for the protein to be absorbed. And then they also don't use sugar. There is no dairy in there. They sweeten it with stevia. Stevia, as you know, is one of the best sweetener. It is actually a leaf which is very sweet, and it has no GI factor, so even diabetic can have that too. So I want to talk a little bit about grains. There are 4 types of grain that one should avoid when we have cancer, and one is wheat, oats, rye, and barley. The reason being, grains, the modern grain is very pro-inflammatory. So it has actually been modified so much so that it's very different from the ancient grain. So if you look at modern grain, for example, it has a very high gluten level. You know, the ancient grain, things like spelt, things like kamut, they don't have a lot of gluten. And as a result, the bread is very crumbly, very hard, very firm, whereas the modern bread is very soft, very chewy. I mean, would you like your bread to be chewy and soft, or would you like it to be very hard? You know, obviously, a lot of people like it to be soft. That's why they keep improving the grain, so it increases the gluten level. But however, gluten is very hard to digest. It's a very difficult protein to digest. So, and it also has a lot of problems, you know, a lot of allergic problem. And also, ancient grain, ancient wheat, for example, don't produce as much yield. So by selection, there is more yield, and also the grain is getting, the plant itself is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So that's why a lot of ancient grain are now getting very popular. Grains such as Coruscant, spelt is another one. Coruscant is another name for kamut. Now, some people say kamut comes from the ancient Egyptian pyramid. That's why they call it the king tut grain. And some say that it comes from back in Noah's time. So kamut or Coruscant is a very good grain. It has more protein. It's actually much larger than the normal wheat. The other thing is this bread is a little bit different. It is actually a live food as well, because what it does is if you look at the ingredient, what they do is with this grain, they soak it with filtered water, so it's actually sprouted. And then they use a little bit of olive oil in the cooking process. So this grain, you find that a lot of people who are allergic to wheat, when they have sprouted grain, they don't have that problem. A lot of them don't have a problem unless you have celiac. So this is by far one of the best grain. Now this one here is rye bread, rye with walnut. So basically, when you do get these, it's very, very dense, very heavy. And what you have to do is, when you get it, is to actually slice it with a very sharp knife. Because if you try to cut this later, it's not going to work. So you need to slice it, and then I tend to put it in the freezer. So as you can see, it's very crumbly. You know, it's very, very dense. There's no yeast in this, no yeast at all. So it's all being sprouted. So very easy to digest. Less problem with allergy. If you just have a piece of these, you'll be it's very, very filling. Oops. So as you can see, it's very, very hard. So I normally just cut it all up and then put it back in there, and then put it in the freezer, and when I need it, I just take it out and toast it. I use almond butter, which I blended up with the pre-soaked almond. Now, just now I was talking about rice. I actually prefer rice rather than the normal grain. Rice don't have a lot of problem compared to a lot of your wheat based grain. Rice is brown rice is definitely the way to go, because that's a living food, whereas white rice has no life in it. Now if you soak white rice, it will rot. If you soak brown rice, it will germinate. So it has a lot more nutrients in brown rice. In fact, when you think about it, if you have a bag of white rice and a bag of brown rice, and you just put it aside, guess which one will go off first? Which one the insect will attack? In fact, the brown rice will get attacked by the insect, whereas the white rice will last a long time. So even the insects are smarter than us. Yeah, and also brown rice has a lot more nutrients. You know, in the germ you've got the vitamin E, you've got the substance called GTF chromium, which is, you know, one of the supplements that we sell for diabetes. And the bran has all your vitamin B. So it's a complete food. And what we do is I use a rice cooker like this. This one you can buy in Brisbane, the Tiger brand, with what they call a germinated brown rice. So what it does, it soaks it, and then it then cooks it. It has a timer, and it cooks it very soft. If you want to go a little bit better, you can go. Now this one, we actually went to Singapore to buy this. This is the Allergy brand. Now, if you have a look here, it's got a feature called Gubba Brown. Gubba Brown means it actually soaks it at the right temperature. So what it does is, at that temperature, the brown rice actually accelerates the germination process. So you soak it overnight at a preset temperature on that setting, and that ideal temperature increase that nutrient level. So then when it starts cooking, it is at its maximum nutrient level. And obviously you have to go to Singapore to buy something like that. And that's the best way to have your rice. Normally what we do with rice is we add in a bit of turmeric powder. We also add in some other ancient grain like quinoa, buckwheat, millet. Yeah. So those ones just increase the nutrient level. There are basically 5 different types of food which are very highly allergenic in some people. The first one is wheat, dairy, egg, nuts, and soya. Now soya is an interesting one. A lot of people, there's a bit of controversial whether soya is good, or some people say it's not so good if you eat too many or too much. Basically, soya in its original form is no problem. Soya bean is fine, but then there's a lot of genetically modified soya bean. Most of the soya bean in US are genetically modified, so that's the first one you want to avoid. Things like tofu is good. Fermented soya like tempeh, miso, soya sauce, they're very good. But the problem ones that we tend to have is the soya texture, like your TVP or your soya isolate. Those ones are very have more problems. The other one is nuts. Nuts, if you have a nut allergy, you probably know about it. Dairy, often a lot of people are allergic to that. A lot of people are allergic to dairy. And then wheat, gluten in particular. So obviously the worst one is celiac, but there's a lot in between, and that can manifest in all different types of situations. It could be dermatitis, it could be allergy, hay fever, it could be even joint pain. So one of the best things is just avoid them all and then just go through the elimination process. That's the best way to find out. Dairy especially is we find that just avoiding dairy and wheat, say for a month, a lot of the symptom can be relieved. If not, then you can introduce it back. If it does relieve it, then you can find out which one you're allergic to.